All right, today I'm actually working on this. It's a 2010 Prius, and I forget the code, but this thing was spitting a code, and it had to do with the water pump on the motor. So started that project. Had I known it had been so easy, I would have started recording at the very beginning. I've already got the whole thing out. You know, I was kind of short on time, but heck, I mean, it was so quick. I figured go and record this real quick. But the water pump, so I'm standing right in front of the car. It's on the left side. There's usually a intake tube right here, which I've got sitting right here, but this is usually sitting here. There's only 3 bolts to take it off. You got one, there's one here, and there's one up here right by your windshield washer reservoir. But you unbolt those, and then this cable here was connected to it. I was able to take one of those like interior door trim panel poppers, squeeze in there and just pop that right off, and then kind of wedge this out. The tube just goes in here, it slides right out, you can pull it out, and then the water pump's right there. So there's 5 bolts. There's also an electrical connector, which is right here, but I took that off. I loosened all 5 bolts, and then I went through and took them all out. And so to check this thing out, so obviously this is the new one, and this pulley just spins freely. This one not so much. This one's completely seized. So this was definitely for sure bad. Trying to think if there's anything special with this job, but these are the 3 bolts. They're 10mm that hold in that intake tube. And then there's 5. I kept them in order because they are different sizes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But so the 2 bolts on the back half of the water pump. In fact, we can hold the new one up here, so it actually sits in the motor like this. To the right would be the front of the motor. But there's 5 bolts. 1, 2. There's one on the very bottom, straight down, and 4, 5. And the front 2 are shorter. The bottom one's short, and then the back 2 are long. So you want to make sure, obviously, we keep those in order. The water pump, I will, first off, these aren't very cheap. I think, if I remember right, we got it off Amazon. It was like 400 bucks. So it does come with a gasket, which is nice. But I already have the gasket in there. Put it on there in a second. Make sure when you put them on, you just want to kind of get the bolts in, feed them through, and then just kind of snug them up lightly. You just don't want to tighten one completely down, and then you also want to do a star pattern. Don't go in a circle. That way the pressure pushes evenly. But oh, one other thing to note, which I'm gonna get a light here real quick. All right, hopefully this helps. But way down there, underneath where the water pump goes, there are some bolts. Can't really tell what they're for, but it's easy to get those mixed up. Don't think this is going to show it very well, but there are a couple bolts down there underneath the water pump. It's easy to get those instead of the water pump bolts, so just be careful of that. But otherwise, that's all there is to it. Like I said, had I known it would have been this easy, I would have popped this thing open when I first started the job. I hate starting videos in the middle of the job. That way people can see the whole process. That's really what there is to it. There's literally 8 bolts. You need 2 sockets. You need a 10mm and a 12mm, and that's it. So if you get the code, I can't remember the code, and but I'll put it in the description. It'll be obvious. I got it written down in the office. So anyways, that's all there is to it. If anything pops up, I will turn the camera back on and show the process. But that's all there is to it. Thanks. All right, figured I'd pop this thing back on. There's a couple things I forgot to mention that I kind of realized as I was putting the new water pump on. So one, when you work on this, you don't want to be working on it on a warm motor. You want to make sure it's cold. Otherwise, obviously, once you unbolt a couple of these bolts, the cooling system, if it's under pressure, coolant's going to just spray everywhere. You're probably going to burn yourself, so don't do that. One other thing I forgot to mention, you have the option, you can, if you want to, you can drain the radiator and take some of the coolant out of the system. I chose not to do that. I figured I'd just take this off. I figured I wouldn't lose too much coolant and it wouldn't be too messy. It wasn't too bad, but I did jack up the car a little bit because the drain pan would not fit. But that's about the amount of coolant that came out of there. So obviously you gotta put that back in. And then when I was looking around and doing some research for this, you should really use this Toyota 5050 Super Long Life. It's just kind of what these Priuses call for. So that's what I got. I'll put links in the description to everything I bought. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna top off the reservoir with antifreeze, which right here's your reservoir. When I say top it off, you definitely don't want to fill it to the top. Fill it to the little marking. It says full right there. So there's a little seam in the middle of this reservoir. You want to fill it to about that. Drive it, let it warm up, let it cool down, check it, you know, after you drive it a little bit, and should be good to go. But I think this 1 gallon jug is going to be plenty for this job. Like I said, didn't lose much. And then so yeah, new water pumps on there, electrical cable, which is right here. I know lighting's not perfect here, but that is plugged back in. But new water pumps on. I'm gonna slap the new intake tube on, or not the new, but the old one back on. And like I said, there's 3 bolts. There's the one back here, one here, and one here. Maybe when I get that back on, I will I'll show where those bolts actually are. And like I said, they're 10 millimeters. So all in all, real simple job. I mean, even with me recording this, it maybe took me about an hour. And I mean, I would like to think most people can do this if you're at all mechanically inclined. So these are the kind of videos I like to make. So anyways, if it helped you, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to. I'm always posting kind of random car videos. But thanks for watching. 1, 2, 3.